Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 10th and the last class in this Bodhah study series. As usual, we'd like to acknowledge Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati, whose discourses we've been studying for the traditional rendering of Vedanta as it was done for over 1,000 years, starting with Adi Shankaracharya. We'll say a small prayer before we get started. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Partyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Salutations to the lineage starting with Lord Sadashiva, with Adi Shankaracharya in the middle, and continuing up to our immediate teacher, Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati. Okay. With that, we will go to where we left. Okay, so to recap how the flow of events in this text is. So first, we saw what are the qualifications needed to understand this knowledge of our true nature. That is who, when we say I is, and the one that is witnessing everything, experience everything. So what are the qualifications to understand the self? And then we understood the root cause of all the problems. It is called adhyasa, the superimposition of my nature onto the world and the world's nature onto me. World also refers to our body because that is not I. Then we saw these conditioners or upadhis. Upadhi is something which, when brought close to another thing, seems to transfer its properties. And the one which receives the properties is called upahitam. So, for example, a crystal, colorless crystal, is a upahitam, and when you get a upadhi of a red flower, it looks as though the crystal takes the color red. And then we saw Atma Anatma Vivekam, or Tvam Pada Vichara, the nature into the inquiry into one's own nature. So there is a Mahavakyam, a great statement called Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. What it says is, it is a Upanishadic statement, and it's found throughout the Upanishads. There are hundreds of these statements, which one of them says, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, like great statements. I am that God or consciousness that pervades everything. So, inquiry into Tvam. Tvam means you, Tat means that. So, the teacher says, Tat Tvam Asi to the student, that thou art. And the student, one who has understood everything, would say, Aham Brahmasmi. Yeah, so the student replies saying, I am that Brahman. So this is how the teaching takes place. So the solution to the superimposition is by understanding what is Atma, that is I, and what is Anatma. Atma, Anatma, Vivekam. So I think Amy asked a question about what Vivekam means. Vivekam is discrimination, separating, like the example is given from the rice from the husk, like that. One has to separate, and for that, you need a one-pointed mind. Okay. And then we went on to the oneness between Jiva and Brahman. And that is done through the process of knowledge, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. This is listening, Shravanam. Mananam means understanding without doubt. And Nididhyasanam is what's called Vedantic meditation, where you internalize everything. And then finally, it starts winding down with Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti as Jnana Phalam. Jivan Mukti means liberated when alive, and Videha Mukti means what happens to this person after this person casts off the body. Videha means without Deha. Deha is the body. The attitude of a Jnani, and then the nature of Brahman. And then we added the extra portion which is not found in the Atma Bodha, which is the Srishti Vicharaha, inquiry into the creation. And finally, we're going to start Jnana Drishti. The Drishti means the outlook of a person who's enlightened. Yeah, on this is the result of the fruit of the knowledge that one has acquired, how the outlook towards life changes for that person. So this is the flow of thought in Atma Bodha. So with that, we will go to where we left last time. Okay. So we saw the the nature of creation, and now the final 6 verses. Vision of the world, or what is Satyam and what is Mithya, as fruits of this knowledge. And the last verse is called Palashruti. There's this glorification of the fruits of the study of this text. Okay. Jagat vilakshanam brahma brahmano kinchana brahmatyat bhati chenmitya yata marumarichika. Okay, what this says is Jagat Vilakshanam Brahma. Vilakshanam means distinct. So the Jagat means universe. The universe, or Brahman, is distinct from the universe. What it clearly says is the universe is Mithya. You can think of it as matter plus energy, and there's consciousness. So you can think of it in 2 ways. One is at the Vyavaharika level, the other is at the Paramarthika level. In the Paramarthika level, that is the absolute reality, it's all a projection. Then at the Vyavaharika level, it becomes matter and energy. Whichever way you look at it, it is different from consciousness. That's what it says. You can look at it as images being projected onto the substratum of Brahman, or you can think of it as matter and energy. But Brahman, the consciousness, is distinct from the universe. And he says, Brahmano jnana kinchana. There exists nothing whatsoever that is not Brahman. So there it can be, looks confusing. Brahman is distinct from the universe, and then it says there exists nothing that is not Brahman. And it seems almost contradictory. Then he's going to explain more. Brahman yat bhati chenmitya. If any object shines different from Brahman, it is illusory, like a mirage in the desert. Brahman yat bhati. Bhati means shine. Brahma anyat. Anyat means that something else separate from Brahman, if it looks to shine, it's mithya. Mithya means something which looks real, like a mirage in the desert, but it's not real. Yatha marichika. So maru means desert. Marichika means it's like a mirage. So you probably heard Maricha. There was a Rakshasa, Asura, or a demon, whatever you call it, in Ramayana, the famous one, who takes the form of the golden deer. We saw the golden deer, right? Previously in the Ramayana story. Does anybody remember that? How Rama goes after the golden deer and he loses Shanti, peace. So that Maricha is the Rakshasa who takes the form of golden deer. So Marichika means it's a mirage, it's an illusion. Okay. So, okay, now I already said it looks contradictory. Brahman is distinct from the universe, 2 different things. But then there says nothing else whatsoever that is not Brahman. There exists nothing else whatsoever that's not Brahman. So what is this? There is this peculiar relationship between Satyam and Mithya. Okay, let's look at what it is. Now, you have a rope here. And the way this rope is, at the end sticking out, it looks like a snake with 2 horns. Now, once the rope is revealed, we know that the rope is different from the 2-horned snake. Rope will exist on its own without the 2-horned snake notion. Rope is Satyam, ever existent. But The two-horned snake relies on the rope even for this figment of imagination it creates in our head. So, two-horned mythical snake is not different from the rope, since it has no existence different from the rope. Rope, but the rope is a substratum. It is not dependent on the snake, but snake is dependent on the rope. This is the peculiar relationship between Satyam and Mithya. Satyam, which is the rope or Brahman, exists on its own. It is not dependent. Mithya, which is all this creation that we see, it is, you can think of it like a projection on Brahman, like it gives the form of a two-horned snake in this case. So that is why even in the Bhagavad Gita, I told this in the chapter 9, sorry, there is this famous sloka, which I've already said before, like there's only gold. All the ornaments are just names and forms. It is there, it's not there. But the one substratum behind all this is only gold. So now what you are getting from this text, you have the ability to understand all these texts, philosophies in Hinduism from a very clear perspective. Otherwise, things can look confusing. Look at this, I've said before. Look at the sloka in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is considered one of the three pillars of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. One is Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and the third pillar is Bhagavad Gita. So the entire thing is supported by these three. Brahma Sutras were sutras on Brahman, which is a condensation of the Upanishads. Like you have the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the entire Vedanta is condensed into 555 shlokas by Veda Vyasa. These are called Brahma Sutras. These are extremely famous. And here, let's look at this Bhagavad Gita. It says, all beings exist in me, and I'm not supported in them. So just like the rope, if you consider rope to be equal to the analogous to Brahman, not just the two-horned snake, all things seems to exist in this rope. But the rope is not supported by the two-horned snake. Rope has its own independent existence. And then immediately Bhagavan in the next shloka, confusingly he says, beings do not dwell in me. So what does he mean by that? Beings do not dwell in me. There is nothing like a being. It's just like a figment of imagination. So with this knowledge that you have acquired by the study of Atma Bodha, everything will become very clear. All the big questions that you're pondering about, when you apply this, things will become clear. Even creation. That's where Gaudapada dismisses the entire creation. There's nothing that's got created. It's just play of images. So it is called Ajativada. Ja means born, created. Ajati means he says, the universe was not even created. In some philosophies or religions, they believe God created in 7 days, all those kind of things. Here, it's not even there. Its creation is an apparent projection on the substratum. Because once you say something is created, then matter, energy, can you create matter from nowhere? All those questions will come. It will not obey some of the laws of physics, all the conservation of matter, things like that. Okay. So this is the reason why this philosophy is very popular with atheists and also scientists. So this peculiar relationship does not hold good for two Satya Vastus. Satya Vastu means to real object. Jagat Vilakshanam Brahma. Brahman is different from the world. Brahmana Anyat Kinchana Na Asti. Brahmana Anyat means something different from Brahman. Kinchana whatsoever. Na Asti, doesn't exist. There is no world that is different from Brahman. It is in Brahman. With this example, is very clearly clarified what this Satya, Satyam, and Mithya are. Okay. Similarly, like the unreal shine of a mirage, any object that shines different from Brahman is illusory, like a mirage in the desert. So in the next shloka, he will explain what this mithyatvam is, this apparent mirage. Drishyate shruyate yat yat brahmanonyanna tat bhavet tatvajnanacha tat brahma satchidanandamadvayam. All that is perceived, drishyate, that is means drishyam, drishti is seen, drishyate, shruyate, what is heard, shruna, shrutam means that which is heard, yatyate, whatever, brahmano anya tatvavet, cannot be other than Brahman. Tattva jnanacha tat brahma, gaining the knowledge of this reality, tattva jnanam, knowledge of the reality, Tat Brahma Satchidanandam Advayam. One sees this universe as Brahman, which is, what kind of Brahman is this? Sat Chit Anandam, existence, consciousness or knowledge, and bliss, and Advayam, it is non-dual. There is no matter and Brahman. Everything is a projection on Brahman. This is the highest level of Vedanta. Remember the 5 levels before the start of the Vedantic study. We saw that, where was this, 220 something? Before the start of the Vedantic study, a person thinks that, oh, I am stages. I am the body. Then there is the consciousness in my body. I am the consciousness in the body. And then comes a bigger leap. I am the same consciousness in all bodies. And finally, I alone am, and the world is just like a mental projection, like in a dream. Okay, so that is the final stage which we are seeing here. So, okay, so all that we see is nothing other than Brahman, is what he's saying. Okay. So he is clarifying the mithyatvam. So gaining the knowledge of the reality, one sees the universe as Brahman, which is existence, knowledge, bliss, and non-dual. Okay. Sarvagam Satchidanantam Jnana Chakshurnirekshate Ajnana Chakshurneksheta Bhasvantam Bhanumantavat. Though the existence, consciousness, bliss, Atma is present everywhere, it is perceived, yet it is perceived by the eye of wisdom alone. Jnana Chakshur Nirikshate. Sarvagam Satchidanandam. Even though it is present everywhere, it is only perceived by the Nirikshate. It means it is perceived by the eye of wisdom. Ajnana Chakshur Neksheta. One who's by ignorance, ajnana means ignorance, chakshu, eyes, eye of ignorance, but one whose vision is obscured by ignorance does not see it. Neksheta. Now it's not able to see that. Just like what? Bhasvantam Bhanumantavat. Bhanu refers to the sun. Bhasvantam means radiant, luminous. So Baswantam Bhanu Mandavat, like a Bhanum Andavat. So Baswantam Bhanum means the sun. Andavat means, it means a blind person. Anda means blind. And like a blind person, one whose vision is obscured by ignorance does not see this. Okay. Similarly, there are two ways to interpret. Anda can also mean an owl. An owl only comes out at darkness and sees the darkness and says, there's no light. Like that, an ignorant person who chooses to remain ignorant cannot see the resplendent, omnipresent Atma. The person has to, so sometimes we are just stuck in a rut, right? Like that, this person has to make an effort to see the daytime. So two ways of interpreting. First interpretation, like a blind person cannot see the resplendence of the sun, an ignorant person cannot see the omnipresent Atma. Second interpretation, like an owl which only comes out at night, at darkness, sees the darkness. Ignorant person chooses to remain ignorant and cannot see the resplendent, omnipresent Atma. Okay. And there's a very famous, a lot of these things Shankaracharya has taken from the Upanishads and from the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita itself is a condensation of the Upanishads. There's a famous shloka in the second chapter, Yanisha sarpa bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. The wise person is awake to the bright day, knowledge of the Atma. That is, the bright day refers to the knowledge of the Atma, which while the rest of the beings regard this as night. What the rest of the beings regard as day, that is the body and the material-centered approach, the wise regard as night, because there's no content there. That's what it means. Okay, so now we're going to slowly start winding down. श्रवणाधिभिरुद्दीप्त ज्ञानाग्निपरितापितः जीवः सर्पमलान्मुक्तः स्वर्णवत्योच्यते स्वयम्. Shravanag, by listening to the scriptures and other means and so on. Uddipta, Deepam means light. Uddipta means kindled. That which is kindled is lit, the fire of knowledge. Jnanagni paritapitaha. And tap means tapas, you say, right? Tap means to heat. So Jnanagni, this fire of knowledge. And what happens in the fire of knowledge? Paritapitaha. Pari means all around, heating well, in the heat of which Jivaha Sarvamalan Muktaha. Mala means impurity. Sarvamala means all impurities Muktaha. Jiva refers to the individual. In the heat of this knowledge, the Jiva is freed of all impurities, like what? Swarnavat yotate swayam. Like just by in the heat, the Swaranam means gold. Like gold, yotate shines by itself spontaneously when it's heated. Just all the dross, they call it the dross, everything through the gold, through smelting, this heating and melting, all the dross, that's the impurities which get collected are removed. So this is how they purify gold. Gold's brightness is hidden by the dross. When you heat it, self's true nature, like that, is hidden by the ignorance and impurities. By self-inquiry and knowledge, these are removed, and the self shines by itself. So this shloka presents the nature of a liberated person, Jivan Muktaha. They are effulgent like gold. What about samsaris, those who are trapped in the cycle of birth and death? They are also gold, but dull because of the impurities, encrustations. It's the whole gold is crusted with the impurities. They don't shine that much. Gold extraction, it's not a straightforward process. there need to be many processing steps to isolate the gold, which is mixed with many minerals. Similarly, ignorance removal is not a straightforward process. Jnana yoga cannot be used directly. First, you have to do karma yoga, upasana, meditation, and once most of the impurities of the mind are removed, then jnana yoga can be used to remove ignorance. That is the meaning of this shloka. Continuing. Hrudakashodito hyatma bodha bhanustamo sarpapyapi sarpadhari bhati bhasayate kilam. The Atma, Hrida Akasha, the Atma which appears in the space of the heart. Hrida means, Hridaya means heart, Akasha, space. Hrida Akasha, Atma, Atma which arises in the space of the heart is the sun. Bodha Bhanus Tamopakrita Bhanuhu. It's a sun of what? Of Bodham. Now, sun of knowledge. Tamaha means darkness. Upakrita means dispels. So it is the sun, the Atma that arises in the space of the heart, is the sun of knowledge that removes the darkness. Sarvavyapi, it's all pervading. Sarvadhari, and dhara means it is the base, or the one, it's the substratum. It is therefore Sarvadhari means it is all sustaining, like the rope, and all things can get projected onto the rope. The rope sustains everything, like that. It sustains everything. Bhati bhasayate akhilam. Bhati, it shines. Bhasayate, it makes the entire universe shine. So that is the meaning. So one of the things we have, Swamiji points out here is Atma tamopakrita. It's called, it says it's the remover of darkness, but we have to carefully note that Atma does not directly destroy the ignorance. So Atma is the destroyer of the ignorance. Logically speaking, Atma cannot destroy the ignorance. But because if Atma can destroy the ignorance, we all have Atma, so we are ignorance free. So when Shankaracharya says Atma destroys the ignorance, it means the Atma reflected in the mind destroys the ignorance. Yes, Lataji? You had a question? Okay. Final shloka. This is the Palashruti. Okay. Let me see. Okay. दिग्देशकालात्यनपेक्ष्य सर्पघं शीतोदिहृन्नित्यसुखं निरञ्जनं यत्स्वात्मतीर्थं भजते विनिष्क्रियः स सर्पवित् सर्पगतो मृतो भवेत्. So this is the only shloka which is in a different meter. It is in a Trishtup meter, which means 11, 11, 11, 11, 44 syllables totally. Anushtup is 32 syllables, 8, 8, 8, 8. So Trishtup meter is used to show something sensational. In the Bhagavad Gita also, in the 11th chapter especially, Vishwarupa Darshanam, Bhagavan shows the cosmic form. There, everything, lot of the shlokas are in Krishtup meter. It creates sensationalism. Even in Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is breaking down and crying, he talks very sensationally. Those are in Krishtup meter. So this is in Krishtup. Dik Desha Kala, that which does not depend on. Dik means direction. Desha is place. Kala is time. Dik Desha Kala. Anapeksha, not depending on, not conditioned by, not limited by these things. Sarvagam, which is all pervading, okay? And all this, one who worships, so all that which is not limited by direction, place, time, etc., which is all pervading. Shita Nitya Sukham Niranjanam. Shita Adi means which is the destroyer of heat, and Shital means just cold. Shita Adi means heat and cold, you can say, pairs of opposites. That's what it's trying to symbolize. Hrit means destroyer. So one which is a destroyer of dualities, the opposites of heat and cold, which is of the form of eternal bliss. Nitya Sukham, eternal bliss. Niranjanam, Anjanam means stain. Niranjanam means stainless. Yak Swatma Tirtham Bhajate Vinishkriyaha. In the holy Swatma Tirtham, Tirtham means it refers to shrine. So the Tirtha also means water. Essentially, it's a shrine of one's own self. One who finds this Atma in one's own self. Yes, Swatma Tirtham Bhajate. One who worships that and qualify to say what that is. It has all these characteristic, or it's of the nature of all this in the holy shrine of one's own self. Vinishkriyaha means free from all activity, actionless, beyond ritualistic and external actions, renouncing the doership of all activities. Sa Sarvavit, that person who's the knower of all. Gato Amruto Bhavet, Sa Sarvavit, Sarvagataha, becomes the all-pervading Amruto Bhavet, immortal Brahman. It becomes the all-Brahman is not mentioned, but he becomes the all-pervading and immortal Brahman. So this person who is not limited by play, who worships that which is not limited by place, time, and which destroys dualities, all these things, pain, pleasure, he says everything is a projection on Brahman. So you shouldn't literally take destroyer of heat and cold. It means this Maya creates all the dualities. Brahman, one who knows the Brahman knows there's only the substratum. All this is play. So that person becomes the all-pervading Brahman and immortal. So that ends the study of the Atma Bodha with this Palashruti in the Trishtup meter. So with this, I shall stop the recording.